Hi, Lou here to talk about trading in games. And to comment first that it rarely happens. By trading, I mean trading with another player or trading perhaps with non-players. It just rarely happens in games. Even when the option is there, people often don't take advantage of it. I think particularly of Catan, what used to be called Settlers of Catan. Sometimes when people play, they don't trade, even though ostensibly it's a trading game. They're more willing to wait for the dice rolls to go their way than to trade with other people. Now, I recall playing Dungeons and Dragons years ago with a group where we traded magic items. Our characters traded magic items. And I really enjoyed that, and it turned out I was very good at it, to the point where some players would not trade with me because they were afraid that somehow they were going to lose the trade. And I suspect the same sort of thing happens in Settlers of Catan. I designed a game where players could force a trade. Players would have cards and they'd have to place some on the table, and other players could then force a trade, take one of their cards on the table and trade it for one that's on the table of the other player, and you had no choice. Well, that has interesting effects, but still it's forced trades. It's legislating trading rather than trading for the sake of trading. Now, trading in general is something that enriches both sides if it's done right. And that's because each side is trading something and they can produce easily or get out of the ground easily or whatever it is. And they trade that for something that it's hard for them to produce. On the other side, it's easy for the thing to produce that's going to the first side, and what they're getting is something that's hard for them to produce. So both sides win. It's kind of like magic. And I've also always been impressed with the notion that the Near Eastern empires, ancient Near Eastern empires, regarded control of trade routes as very important. Of course, they were in effect running tariffs, but the trade was there and the trade was important. The trade had to get done, and whoever controlled the trade route could gain some money from it, even if they weren't the ones who were actually trading. So you'd expect, especially in some of the older civilization style games, that trading would be important. And in the game Civilization, the tabletop game, there is trading of goods, but you don't see anything like the magic of I produce this cheaply, I trade it to you, and you trade me something that it's hard for me to produce or I have to produce expensively. Presumably in the thousands of games that have been published, there are some games like that, but I've never encountered one. And I've started one myself, but I haven't got to the point of even making a prototype yet. Who knows what'll happen there. Of course, consider that in the popular style of game, Euro games, they are almost always symmetric. That is, everybody starts the same way. Whereas I think a successful trading game probably will do better if it's asymmetric, so that some players can produce something cheaply and other players cannot, and so forth. And so some trade routes are hard to follow and dangerous, and some are safe or relatively safe. And that kind of thing might make for an interesting game, but one has to have time to produce these kinds of things. Thanks for listening.